Assalamualaikum, I'm Hizami. I'm here at Yale attending a lecture called HackYale. My dad is going to record the whole lecture to give you a sample of how lectures for all ages look like.
About all the things that happen around the campus. The reason we had you sign in and ask you for your email is that it's really important for you to give me your updated email address so that way I can tell you about all the opportunities that there are, especially for the students who are a little older. There are lots of programs that Pathways is tapping into on campus now. Some are science residential programs that you'll be allowed to apply to. Other like full weekend programs that we're kind of coming up with. So really make sure that I have your updated information. And even if you want to give me your junk email address that you check once in a while, that's fine too. The other thing that I just wanted to do is to remind you to keep going to that website for all of the events that we have on campus. As Pathways Assigned students, you can go to any event that's listed on that site, and some of them are really, really great. And if you're kind of iffy what it's about, I don't know if I'd like it, give us a call and we'll let you know what it's about and what goes on. Watch this lecture as well. This is Zach, and Zach is a senior at Yale, and he began the program, right, Zach?
I was actually a student when the program began.
Oh, okay, so you're a student when the program began. I'll let him explain a little bit more what HackYale is. But essentially, they put on classes for other undergraduates, for other college students at Yale, about different web technologies. This is our first time really interacting with HackYale, but we're hoping that this is the first of a few. And maybe
how this goes.
Yeah, depending on how this goes, I guess. I am actually going to have to leave right after the lecture, if not really beforehand, because I have a family event. So I just wanted to thank Zach beforehand, and afterwards, please give him a really big round of applause if I'm not here. By giving him this really funny kind of thing that we often give to our lecturers. It's a math clock. So, thank you so much for being here. I will also leave my business cards right over here, so if anyone does have a question, I'm not here, you can feel free to contact me. Thank you, Zach, for being here. I really appreciate it.
Awesome, thanks so much. Thank you guys all for coming. So, as Maria said, I'm Zach. I have a corny slide introducing myself later. First question, can you guys hear me in the back? Everyone tells me I think I talk louder than I actually do, so if you can't hear me, just raise your hand and tell me to speak up, and I will. So first, I wasn't sure what to expect. Almost all the classes I teach are to Yale students, so I didn't know if we would be like a smattering of all high schoolers or parents, so raise your hand if you're in high school. Okay, what about middle school? And lower school? Anyone? Elementary school? And then done with school? Cool, so the end of today, is anyone in college? Cool. So this is going to be, I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about HackYale. How many of you guys have heard of HackYale outside of the context of today? Okay, great. So those slides will be useful. We'll spend about 5-10 minutes on that. And then we're going to talk about the internet. This is the only subject that we're actually going to really dive into because it's something that we can cover in 10 to 15 minutes, and it's something that's very useful to know about. I think everyone would like to understand the internet a little bit better, including myself. Next thing we're going to do is give you guys kind of a sample of what a HackYale class is like in 1/10 of the time of a HackYale class. So I'm basically going to be pressing this right button and telling you how we go through class, showing you all the slides. And also, I included those slides in the presentation because the slides are online, and so if you guys want to revisit them and ask me questions as you go through them, you're welcome to. Last thing I'm going to do is, have any of you guys taught before? I figured there might be some teachers in the audience or people who are interested in teaching. This is my 4th semester teaching HackYale, so if I haven't learned a fair bit, then I failed. So I have a few things to share, just what we've learned teaching our class. And then I'll try to leave 10 minutes at the end for a question and answer. Do these things usually run like an hour? Is that okay? Good. Cool. So this talk is available. I don't see too many computers, but if you want to check it out, you really don't need to, but after class, I'll send this link around, and Maria can send it out to the people who put their emails down so you can revisit the slides if you want. So I'm Zach. I'm HackYale Director. I'm a senior in Trumbull, computer science and economics major here. My favorite Martin Lawrence movie is Blue Streak. I don't know if you've seen it. It's very good. Cool. So, HackYale through the ages. So as Maria said, we provide student-run lectures in web development, introductory programming, and web design. That's what we've done for 5 semesters now. I was actually a student in the first HackYale class, and since that time, we've evolved to include more things, more offerings, and encompass more students. So in the fall of 2011, HackYale started as a place that you could learn web development from other Yale students, and they posted the application online, thinking they'd get some people to take the class and hopefully learn how to develop websites. And about 600 people applied in the fall. So obviously this was too many people to take, but the first class still went very successfully. I was actually a student in that class. It was 2 sections of about 25 people, and we learned introductory HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and a little bit of Node.js, which is a server-side language. And if that's all gibberish, don't worry at all. Hopefully it will be slightly less gibberish in 45 minutes. So we considered expansion the next semester. We offered new classes. I taught the class that I had originally taken, and but we decided to really focus then on workshops afterwards so we could offer all these new things as one-time jumping off points. And I'd like to think today is kind of a workshop about just an introduction to HackYale, so you guys can understand what we're about. Maybe if web development piques your interest, you'll get in touch with me afterward, or come up and talk to me and figure out how you can learn more. So what we're up to now, we have our flagship lecture course. We teach a bunch of workshops every semester. So examples include we had a Python data science workshop last week that Kyle Jensen, who works at a startup in New Haven, came and gave. We have collaboration with other groups like Yale Hackers and other groups on campus. And then we recently launched HackYale Jobs, which puts Yale students in touch with startups who want to hire them for internships and jobs after college. Lectures once a week. We have office hours. We have homework. It doesn't count for credit because I'm very unqualified to give Yale credit. But it is otherwise very similar to a Yale class. Cool. So these are the names of some of the apps that people who have taken the class have built. We can do a little showcase if we have time at the end. And in the future, one of the reasons that I got in touch with Maria is, incremental change. Yeah, we want to improve everything. And then, but more excitingly, we want to be involved in high schools. I taught 2 classes at Metro Business Academy last spring to a guy named John Artea's computer science class, and we're interested in expanding that to have one-on-one or one-on-2 tutoring with students in high school and middle school, because, and you can't tell this to the Yale students, but you guys were certainly as capable as they are on day 1. Cool, so do you guys have any questions about HackYale before I move on? I know it's kind of awkward to raise your hand in a room of 150, but feel free if you do. Okay, so I'm going to try to teach you guys what the internet is in the next 10 minutes. I don't really know everything about what the internet is, but I think it's pretty easy to get a basic idea in a short time. How many people think they have a good understanding of what the internet is? Okay. Raise your hand if you want to explain what the internet is. Okay, that's fine. I'll do my best. So the longest line ever. Usually one of the homeworks for our first class is to watch a YouTube video about how the internet is not really a cloud, it's more like a line, which is any analogy can only take you so far, but it is probably more accurate. So Video was great, thanks to Aaron Titus. He made the video. So this is a little over the top, and I was hoping I would have like a whiteboard, but let me pull this up for a second and we'll try to draw a diagram. So, so to explain the internet in like 2 minutes, and this is one of the questions that we usually ask when we interview people to be instructors. And basically imagine, what's your name? Dan? All right, so Dan has a computer over here. And what's your name? Katie. And Katie has a computer over here. Okay, and how about you? What's your name? Adrian. Okay, and then Adrian's computer. Did I spell that right? A-D-R-I-A-N. Okay. Cool. Adrian likes desktops. Okay. And so Adrian is, busy playing Halo 3 on his computer, and Dan and Katie are writing Word documents for their class. But they have no way of sharing this information. They can't send these documents to another person. So let's pretend that Dan teaches a class, and Katie is in that class. And Katie wrote an amazing paper that's going to win tons of academic awards, but she wants to submit it. So she walks over to Dan's office and she prints it out and gives it to him, right? But that's kind of slow, so a bunch of professors at schools on the West Coast were like, we want to be able to share documents wirelessly. So they took a big copper wire and they hooked it up to Dan's computer and they ran it to Katie's computer, and then they invented a way for these computers to talk to each other. And then eventually, Adrian was like, well, you guys are busy writing academic papers, like, you might have a little more fun if you played some Halo 3. And so he invited them to be with him as well, so they could all get in the game and all the other competitors. So basically the internet is just a set of lines that connect computers so the computers can speak to each other. And where it starts to get complicated is how those computers actually talk to each other. So you've probably seen these 4 letters before. HTTP. That'll be at the beginning when you type in. You don't really have to do it anymore on Chrome or some of the more advanced browsers. But in the past, you would type in like http://www.espn.com, and immediately all the scores would be there. So HTTP refers to the protocol, basically the language that these computers are speaking to each other. And that language is kind of overarches like other languages like TCP and IP, but basically they get to talk to each other now, and that's why the internet's cool. And so once you can connect all these computers, you can have them talking to each other. You can spend 5 hours each afternoon on instant messenger. You can invent stuff like Facebook. And eventually people start to build new computers whose only purpose is to respond. So Adrian was playing Halo 3 by himself on his computer, but then, I think it's like Activision or someone, I don't know who makes Halo 3, but that company says, okay, we're going to have all these computers up in Sweden, because Sweden is cold and we don't want to pay for air conditioning. And those computers in Sweden are just going to make sure that Adrian can play Halo 3 with Katie. So what we have here now is not just a computer, it's a server. Has anyone heard the word server before? Okay, awesome. So I heard it a lot before I knew what it meant. And I was like, oh yeah, server. But I didn't really know what it meant. Basically, it's just a computer off somewhere. I like to picture it in Sweden for concreteness. And what it does is it responds to other computers' requests for information. So Adrian can say, hey, Halo server, I want to know where the bad guys are. And Halo server will respond with a map of all the other people playing the same level that he's playing. Or Dan can say, hey, Halo server, I want to know what my friends' statuses are on Facebook. Or sorry, and Halo server will be like, why are you talking to me? He'll say, hey, Facebook server, I want to know what all my friends' statuses are. And Facebook server will respond and be like, Michelle is at the grocery store. Dan will be like, yes, I have friends. So this is sort of translates how a simple concept of the internet turns into this whole web that exists today. So it really is that simple, but I'll go into a little bit more technical terminology about what's actually going on, so that instead of just understanding it, you can talk to jargony business people about it. Okay, so we went over the idea of connected computers, and what's evolved from that is this client-server model. So there are clients, that's Dan, Adrian, and Katie, and there are servers, which are Facebook and Halo, Halo's gaming server. And the clients request information and the servers respond with it. So there are some terms like local, which is like wherever you are, remote is the other thing. So if I'm on my computer, I'm local, and Halo 3 is remote. But that kind of stuff is not quite as important. Cool. So the client is the web browser. And the web browser will make a request, the server will issue a response, and the cycle repeats itself. So has anyone ever been like redirected? So you try to go to one page. For example, if you're on like the Yale network, you try to get a page and it's like, no, you need to log in first. That happens all the time. So what's actually going on there is, and I'm sorry if people can't see on the other side, so I'll just try to explain it. The client will make a request, and the server will issue a response that says, no, you made the wrong request. You actually want to request this other place. And then the client will be like, okay, thank you for that information. I'll request the other place, and then the server will respond with the information. So it's all just a back and forth communication that results in the browser showing a bunch of text. Now, one thing that I really left out is, okay, they're sending like text back and forth, but how come it looks so pretty? How come I have this browser and there are images and pictures? And the answer is that there's some language that these computers use to talk to each other, and the browser is able to interpret that language and show what we desire. And so what HackYale does, what the first class of HackYale is learning what those technologies are, what those languages are that translate text into beautiful images and data about your friends in the browser. So when we say HTML, when we say CSS, and when we say JavaScript, those three languages come together to translate user or developer specified text into images, fun pop-up icons, and pictures of kids. So that's really the core of what's going on the front end, which is the client. So to go over some key technologies, we have the client-server model. I always include this slide because it makes me look artistic even though I didn't make it. So yeah, you request HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Basically, you request instructions about what to display, and the server will respond with what's requested. So on the client side, we have HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and then there are a bunch of server-side languages too, and we cover these in our HackYale workshops. We cover these in other classes, but in our introductory class, we stick to HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Okay, is anyone confused? Okay, yeah, I see some head nods. So that's good. If you're confused, it means when you aren't anymore, you'll know something new. So let's go ahead and take a walk behind the scenes of what's actually going on when we visit a website, and when the requests are getting made, what the HTML is doing, what the CSS is doing, what the JavaScript is doing. So if we go, I put together a little introductory app, and it's at HackYale-intro.herokuapp.com. So what's happening now, let me back up and do that again. I type this in, And when I hit enter, it makes a request to Sweden, where my pages are hosted. And it says, hey, computer in Sweden that has the files I want, can I have these files? And the computer in Sweden is going to say, sure, here's an HTML file, here's a CSS file, and maybe here's some JavaScript. And these will direct you how to display. So what actually happened is I made this request to hackYaleintro.herokuapp.com/welcome/html, and the server off in Sweden said, thank you for your request, here is some text back. And the text looks like this. And if you go into your browser, you can always go view, developer, view source, and this is what actually got sent back. So we have a bunch of angle brackets, we have a bunch of letters, and then we have the actual text. You can see some of the stuff, like, for example, in here you see welcome to HackYale at the top, and right there you see it says welcome to HackYale right at the top. And wrapped around that welcome to HackYale, it has H1 and then /H1, which is basically saying make this text huge. So the browser sees that, it says, okay, Zach wants to display this text huge to the users. You know, he's a horrible designer, but we'll trust him anyway. So go ahead. And then it says H3, which is slightly smaller, but still pretty big. This course will focus on the front-end technologies. And if we go back, we can see that this course will focus on front-end technologies. It's still bigger than like the paragraph text, but not quite as big as welcome to HackYale. And then we've used a few other techniques. For example, you see those bullet points on the left of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Those are specified by an unordered list, UL, with LI's list items inside of it. And then the last thing that's important to get from this is if you see the link. So that's A, and then we say href, which means hyperlink reference. It's not very clear, but you've heard the word hyperlink before, I imagine. So you type where you want the link to go, and then in the tag, the text that you want the link to have. So the important thing to get from that is there's this language, and by specifying different things, you can tell your computer how to render it, where the links should go, how to display them, and eventually, once you learn this and a few more things, you have very cool things like Facebook.com. So then, this is HTML, and you see there's really no style going on here, right? It looks like the type of web page that you might have seen in, like, most of you guys weren't alive in 1995, but 1995, when you plug in the phone jack and so this is like something that you might have seen back then. And the next component is CSS. So let's click on this link and check out CSS. So we see some stuff has changed. We have a gray background. There's actually a gradient, but you can't really see it. We've turned our links light blue, and we have this very cool font thing. And all of our font now, instead of being like Times New Roman, it's something more like Helvetica. So we told it how to style the document with a CSS file that we attached. So does anyone know what we should do to find out what's actually going on? I heard a lot of use sources, so I'll trust you guys. I wasn't sure. Okay, so we see basically the same thing, but there's one line that wasn't there before. Does anyone see that line? Someone said it over there. You can speak up, you're right. Awesome, yeah, so there's that link rel equals style sheet, href equals /style sheet /style.css, right? And if we follow that link, we'll see that I've actually included another file in my response. And that file is a list of style declarations. So what I'm saying is the body should have a radial gradient. The A tags, which are links, should have this color, and they shouldn't be underlined. You know how links are underlined by default? I'm saying that there shouldn't be bullet points, list style type none. There should be no bullet points on the list items. Where do I declare the font? I say the font should be Lucy de Grand. I thought it was Helvetica, I was wrong. It should be 14 pixels by default. And you see that I can just style all these different things with a list of declarations. And if that list gets long enough, all of a sudden you have ESPN.com. So just keep writing. So that's where CSS comes in. Now, the third component of front-end web development is another language called JavaScript. So can you guys think of some things that we haven't been able to do and that we couldn't ever do with the two technologies that we've sort of gone over so far? What's that?
Pictures.
Okay, so images, that's one thing we haven't talked about. Anything else? Yeah. Animations? That's perfect. That's like the #1 answer. Any more? Yeah. Right. Yeah. So you guys touched on 3 really good things. I probably should have included an image in the HTML page because images are actually part of HTML. There's a tag called img, which is an image tag, and you pass it where the image lives, and then it grabs the image. But it's definitely true that animations, cool pop-ups, those are not really things that we can do right now. So if I go to some place like ESPN.com, and it's not just to check the college football scores, and I hover over this, we see a pop-up of a menu bar, right? And that's not something that, based on CSS and HTML, we can really imagine how to do. So whereas CSS is a styling language and HTML is a markup language, JavaScript is a full-fledged programming language. And with JavaScript, the possibilities for creativity are really limitless. And it's much harder to learn than the first two. So yeah, we see if we hover over here, we get this. We imagine that even if we go to, say, the HackYale jobs page, to give you a more simple example, if I want a job at Panorama, which is a Yale startup, I click and it scrolls me down fluidly. You see how it didn't just like snap down there, it scrolled down? That's all specified in JavaScript. So let's take a look at what a simpler page of JavaScript looks like. So JavaScript is the logic of the web, right? It can do anything. And it's a real programming language. So we kind of explained that. So what should we do to find out what's actually going on? Yeah, right in the middle?
Use source.
Exactly. I told you guys are much quicker than the Yale students. Cool. So we see 3 new lines. First, we have this inclusion of a library called jQuery. And jQuery is just a commonly used thing that basically predefines a lot of JavaScript so that it makes it easier to do easy things. So it just saved me a lot of typing to include that library. Then I have this snowfall.min.js. And it's hard to get an idea of what that really is, but we'll be able to see in a second. And then I have this main.js. And if we take a look at main.js, we see something interesting. All right, does anyone know? We go back here, there's a little instruction to make it rain. I should have put this beforehand. But yeah, so we can drop confetti on the whole web page with what amounted to about 10 lines of my JavaScript. And because I used other people's libraries, which is something that you can do to help yourself out, everyone's very nice about openly publishing their stuff. I was able to, with 10 lines, create this animation. And if you can think about doing something like this, you can start to think about making a drop-down window or having alerts pop up or anything like that. So it's actually not that far advanced once you understand what's going on.
Can I ask a question?
Question?
When you said that all those languages are out there, are you just copy and pasting it basically?
Basically.
So you're sharing all these, so if you wanted to do that, it's probably already out there and you just copy and paste it.
Right.
Okay.
So if we go into the view source, we see that I've included this file called jQuery.js. If I click on it,
Whoa.
so another guy whose name is John Ressig, he's very smart, he wrote this library and then basically eliminated all the spaces to make it as small as possible. But he wrote this library that basically gives me a lot of predefined stuff. So I can write confetti.snowfall, and all the logic for one piece of confetti falling is already written. So that was written by, I'm not sure who wrote this snowfall library, but it's a similar thing. It's much smaller than jQuery, but you know, someone still put a lot of work into like making this. So this is actually a good example of like, how did I find this library? One thing that we teach, which you'll see when I go over that section, is the best way to do anything is to just think of whatever question you would ask the world's foremost expert, and then ask it to Google instead. So I can say like, confetti library JavaScript. And I see lots of results. So this guy had it. Often there'll be an option to buy people beers. If you're not 21, don't do it. He's got his resume there so that I can hire him after I use his library. And okay, so that's not there. So I give up on that one, and I'm like, okay, falling confetti. CodePen is a cool library, and see it shows this. I actually like this a lot more than my confetti, so maybe I want to use this instead. So I can just sort of copy and paste this, replace the stuff I need, and then it'll work for my website. So it's all out there, and Google is the portal through which you can find it. Awesome. So I've included this link in the presentation later, and what it has is a nice live demo with the first page and some HTML so that you can try it out. So you'll see, if I say get dynamic, which means live update, I can change stuff here, and it'll change in the document, which is on the left side. So it's not perfect, but it's a nice little introduction to how that stuff can work. And if I want this link, so right now this link takes me to NewYorkTimes.com. Say I want to make like one of those fake links, and instead I'll take it to like FoxNews.com. And then I click New York Times, all of a sudden I'm at Fox News. So you can really see how you specify where a link should go versus what they say. Awesome. Are there any questions before I move on to this rapid fire 10-minute, here's what the first HackYale class looks like? Okay, so let's do it. If you guys remembered 5% of what happens, that's amazing. Basically, this is just to give you an idea of what our slides look like, how we teach, and what technologies we cover. This is much more material in the next 5 minutes than we cover in our hour-and-a-half first class. So I'm basically just going to go through the slides.
Excuse me. I have a question from one of the kids over here. I want to know where you go to type in all this code. Like where are you typing that all in? Is it another software program? Or?
I'll show you guys in a sec.
Okay.
So we think of a web page as this interaction between 3 languages. So you can imagine it, there's the bones, this is Google's HTML, it's really ugly. In a week, actually today you can make this. CSS is like the skin, JavaScript. Okay. So we'll do this first. I was going to skip ahead and then come back to this, but we'll do this first because you asked that good question. So implementation. So this could be a type-along. All you need is a text editor. Has anyone ever used TextEdit? Or like Notepad++, or one of those? Yeah, so those are very basic text editors. And all you need, and you can actually get much more basic to the point where you're just creating files, and all they have is the text that you type. So that's what we want. So the best free text editor for beginners is something called Sublime Text. And if we type some HTML in Sublime Text, so I've opened up the Sublime file, and you can download this on sublimetext.com. And I've saved a file called index.html, which is just a convention. And if I type h1, hi, I'm Zach, and I'll make this much bigger for you guys. And then I close it, save. I've saved this file to my desktop here. And if I open it, and I'll say open with Google Chrome, and we see that that HTML file was rendered. So exactly as you said, there's a program called Sublime Text that allows me to type text files, and if I name that text file index.html and open it with Chrome, it'll be opened as though it were sent from a server. So really these computers that we talked about earlier are just passing files around. And when they receive a file, they open it with the browser. So I've sort of shortcutted that, and instead of requesting it from Sweden, I'm requesting it from myself. And if I wanted to include some CSS in there, I could say, and I'll just say style.css, and then I'll create a new file, and I'll save that also to the desktop as style.css. And if I say body, or I'll say h1, color green, save that, and then go back to Chrome, and all of a sudden it's green. So already we've included some CSS, included some HTML, and we're well on our way to displacing Twitter and ruining their IPO. So, does that sort of answer what you were looking for? And if you have questions about specific programs, just ask me after class or send me an email, I'll help you out. Cool. So what we do is we go over tags, we talk about HTML and more specifics, opening tags, closing tags. You've probably got a basic idea of this just from seeing the code. And they can be nested within each other. So we've got this doc type, head, body. Some popular tags, you mentioned image tags, paragraphs, anchors are the links. Okay, then we go over CSS. This is usually class 2 now, so you guys are about 2 hours in at this point. So I built a site. It's ugly. It doesn't have much color. It's not control, whatever. So CSS helps us with that. Basically, you grab elements like the way that I grabbed the H1, and I said, hey, all you H1s, green. All you divs, width 900 pixels. So I'm basically like picking up elements and throwing paint at them. So you can grab them. The syntax, we just looked at that in our text editor. But it's tag name. Here are some technical terms. This will all be online, so I'll skip through it pretty fast. And then we have JavaScript. So the concept of JavaScript is it's real programming. So you'll notice that it's a lot harder to learn. And that's fine. The key is to not give up. The analogy that I use in class is you have to keep ramming your head against the wall until the wall falls down, which is probably a little more barbaric than you want, but it's kind of how it feels sometimes. So we go over the syntax, what is a variable. These are all programming concepts that apply to any programming language that you hope to learn. And then we talk about the history because JavaScript has a really cool history. JavaScript and Java are not related at all. If you learn one thing about JavaScript today, it should be that it's not the same thing as Java. Java was really popular when they made JavaScript, so the people who made JavaScript were like, oh, if we call it JavaScript, everyone will think it's Java and then we'll be popular. And they were right, except Java's not popular anymore, so it's negative now. So, brief history. This is a great article, and the link will be online where the slides are. So then we talk about the Chrome console, which is a built-in JavaScript editor in Google Chrome that allows you to edit your JavaScript and try things out. Syntax. So yeah, we harp on the fact that you need to use Google, more just to save us time. And then we include JavaScript the same way that we include CSS, with a line that says, hey, grab this file and run it. Basically the same thing as copying and pasting the file in right there. Cool. So throughout the 4 semesters that I've taught HackYale in the 1 semester that I've taken it, I think that the lessons we've learned have fallen into like 3 categories. Some are straightforward and they make sense, and it's like, oh, that was really dumb of us. Some are not obvious, and it's like, I wonder how we can think of these things sooner. And some we just haven't figured out yet. So I separated a few into some categories, and then you guys said you weren't super interested in teaching. but maybe if you have teachers who don't do these things, you can demand more of them. So one thing is true, we can't spend 10 weeks teaching like cryptography in Node.js. And it's just too esoteric, which basically means like not mainstream. And so people want just like one little sample filling of that. Another thing is it's very good to focus on the products. It means a lot more to tell someone you'll be able to build this rather than this is the technology or here's how you program. Because people really like to think about the powers that knowing this is going to give you. And so we try to focus on the fact that if you know this, here's what you'll be able to do. And that's kind of how I've always thought of it. You guys are all way ahead of me. I never programmed a line of code when I was in high school, so I was very behind when I got to college. And one of the driving motivators was like, if I learn this, then I can do this. So we really try to focus on that. And another thing, which hopefully I've been okay at today, is that one has to be energetic. John over there is one of my best friends. He'll tell you that energy does not come to me naturally. So, so that's something that I've worked on a lot. Cool. So another thing, we used to think like, oh, we should have class like Tuesday night because that's when everyone's doing work, so they'll be in the mood to do work. And the answer is that's when everyone's doing work, and kids here care a lot more about work than a lot of other kids, and so that's when they'll skip class to work. So we started having class on Friday afternoon, and our attendance has been way better than ever before. So if you thought y'all kids were nerds before, that's been validated. And then another thing is that we really have tried to get a more participatory classroom. We really want students to be friends with each other, to work on the homework with each other outside of class, and also to just have swag, is the word that I use, about their ability to develop. And swag is just like the same thing as confidence, but basically there are a lot of opportunities to be very scared and to feel powerless because you're going to spend a lot of time being like, why can't I do this? And the important thing is to have confidence that people have done this before. They're smart, I'm smart, so I can do this someday. So I can keep working at it and eventually I'll get there. So that's sort of an attitude that we really like to promote. And then another thing is that you have to put in all the preparation, but at the end of the day, our class is full of diverse set of how much people know. Like some people know a ton going in, some people don't know that much. And what's going to go off track is not necessarily what we think will go off track, so we have to be ready to scratch the whole lesson and just spend the day reviewing if we have to. And then a few things we haven't figured out yet. Ensuring long-term commitment. So Yale kids also care a lot about grades, and so if they have a midterm, it's just going to be way more important than class, or if we don't give grades, not being qualified to. And then we also have to figure out how much is the right amount to bite off. There's one attitude that's like, pick the hardest path, bite off more than you can chew, and you'll like learn some fraction of that that's more than if you had like picked an easier path. But we also want to be like nice and not like overly demanding. So that's been a difficult thing. We're still trying to work on those two things. So yeah, if you wanted to try out that app, you can go to this URL, and this is all online. You guys have homework. This is the last thing. So the homework for you guys, besides exploring the links in this presentation, is complete project 1 at dash.generalassembly.ly. General Assembly is a startup founded by some Yale guys a few years ago, and they recently, only a few weeks ago, released a project called Dash. I think it's the best, very, very introductory HTML and CSS teacher out there. I don't know, has anyone used Code Academy? Okay, so it has a similar idea as Code Academy, like learn online with an interactive console, but it's much more project and product focused. So instead of learning what variables and loops are, you're learning how to build a personal web page for a consultant in New York. And so in 30 minutes, if you've never done anything before, you'll be able to complete project 1. So this is your homework, and hopefully it will inspire you to complete projects 2 through 4, and then email Nathan, who created Dash, and be like, where's project 5? Because he'd really appreciate that. Cool. Thank you guys so much for coming. I hope I wasn't a bore. We have about 5-10 minutes for questions, so if any of you guys have any, feel free.
Can you put those links up on the board, the 2 links, so we can?
Yeah,
we can
I'll
type
put a link up to
okay.
the slides, and that'll have all of them.
What's that?
There's a link to these slides.
On the website? How do we get to the link?
Slides is, I'll hang around for 10 minutes or so, so just come up if you have any
I just want to thank you for taking
No
every
problem.
Thank you, thank you. Oh my God.
Bye, TJ.
Oh, where did you get the
Oh, are you here?
Do they?
Yeah,
do
we're
they
done.
still have it?
All right, see you.
Anissa,
Inside what pizza?
can you show?
Go inside.
Oh, they do a pizza where?
Go. Just go. Just
Come on, go.
if you don't want, can give it to me later.
Where did you park? I went to the free park. You know where the Temple Street? You take a right and then left at college. Right at right and then it's at Wall Street and then Temple. Get inside the parking.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Hizami and thanks for watching.